out if I have 0.1 moles, how will the delta H change? How will the Q, right? The energy change, right? So it's just a proportion. This is how I thought of it. 2 is to negative 610. 0.1 is to x. Now that might be hard for some of you. I don't know. Again, you can do everything in scientific notation, but the way I thought of it, this is what I wrote initially on my paper here, but then I said, all right, well, if half of 2 is 1, half of 610 is 305. Well, if that's 1 moles, right? If 2 is this, 1 is this, then 0.1 would be 30.5. I would just move the decimal. Now that might be easy for me and not you, I don't know. But that's how I ultimately thought of it. And that's the same as this. They're going to give you numbers where you can do stuff like that. You can look at it and say, well, if I cut this in half, I cut this in half. And if I move it 1 decimal place, I move this one 1 decimal place, and that's how you get the answer. I really don't want the math part to get you guys. I don't want that to stress you out, and that because if you understand what to do, but the math holds you back, that's frustrating. I think for you, frustrating for you.
That's been this whole class.
Well, the
test
short answer is that can be hard. This math isn't hard, it's just tricky because you can't use a calculator. It's different.
Is a calculator on this short answer?
Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow, either in class or after school, I'll make sure, I go through the format of the test, the deal, everything, just so you're comfortable, there's no surprises, what's going on. Alright, so that's that. That's 30, 30.5.
I just realized our test is in 2 days.
Yeah, Thursday morning, Thursday.
Tomorrow, then Trevor and I have AP.
Yeah, I know. You know what, I'll record. I'm going to go over kinetics and equilibrium. So I know you were saying you were struggling a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you're not alone on that. So you can watch that. So I'll go over that. I think tomorrow what I'll do is kind of zip through, kind of reteaching kinetic and equilibrium really quick, and then we'll just do practice problems on kinetics and equilibrium. That's what we'll do. All right. And then whatever else. We still have a list of things and whatever else we want to do, but we have after school too. And what am I getting?
Pizza.
Half
2 cheese
pepperoni
pizzas.
pizza? I even order half a pizza.
I love pepperoni. You can order.
So you want a pizza,
I want a
pepperoni, half
Okay,
cheese?
1 cheese, 1 pepperoni. Yeah, 1 cheese, 1 pepperoni.
2 larges?
Yes. 2 large.
Extra large.
Yes.
Growing boys here and girls. All right.
Just mainly Calvin.
38. No, I understand. I'm hungry all the time. I'm hungry. All right.
It was like they ate a whole
That was good too.
Those
That was
potatoes.
fresh, nice.
No. They're
Oh.
apple.
I thought they were potatoes. They look. I don't know why. What is it?
My front left tooth is half fake, so if I bite into a lot of things, it wears it down faster. So I cut things up like I'm a child.
Pull it off.
I was.
What?
You take the tooth, like is it?
No, it's no half. No, the top half is normal.
Uh-huh.
I chipped it when I was a kid, but now I have to get it fixed like once a year because it wears down, and then my teeth are eventually like different lengths.
That'd be fun.
So,
I'm gonna say that on Halloween.
Pop it out.
but that'd be cool if I can do
She
that.
chipped
Yeah.
no. She chipped one the other day because she bit into an apple. She's like, I just chipped my tooth. Like.
It happens, yeah, especially if it's fake. Yeah. All right, moving on. 38. If you can't do 38, let's fix that right now. So, any question?
I got it wrong.
What?
I got it wrong.
Okay, all I said is let's fix it right now. So, this is the one exception where O is not -2. It's the peroxide. Yeah.
I remember you saying that O can sometimes be
I got it
1.
narrowed down
Well,
to C
or
and
something?
D. I just didn't pick the right one up.
Listen, if you can narrow every question down to two questions,
Yeah, but then I don't.
you're going to do well on this test. I promise.
Yeah, but
Because
then it's
there's-
50-50 and I always.
Yeah, but there's kids, there's going to be kids, I'm not talking about you guys, but other schools across the country, whatever, that sit down and they're going to get to questions and they can't eliminate any of the answers. They're in trouble. Okay? That's not going to be the case for you guys. So if you get them down to 2.
I always do wrong too.
All right, here we go. So, Na2O2. You may not remember this is the peroxide and each one's -1. You may not remember that. But you do know compounds add up to 0 and you do know that's +1. So if you have 2 NAs, each one is +1, that's a +2. The only way this whole thing adds up to 0 is if this part, O2, is -2. So the only way that can happen is each O is -1. So you don't have to memorize the peroxide ion to figure that out. You just have to label them and just be careful. So each oxygen here is a -1. On the other side, see you, Skylar. On the other side, OH, your O is -2, and the SO2, each O is -2. So that's what's happening, okay? So when you look at 38 and it says reduce, first of all, that means gain. So it can't be A or B. Is that safe to say? Okay. That's it. There it is. Because O to D doesn't make sense because O in water is -2. So each atom gains 1 electron. There's only one atom. There's only one O in water, and it gains 2 electrons. Right? I mean, it would be a -2, not a -1 is what I'm trying to say. So that's why it's C. So again, another way to explain it. Here, eyes up here. To go from, look up here. To go from a -1 to a -2, this one gains 1 electron and turns into one of those, and this one gains 1 electron and turns into the other. And that's, the stoichiometry balances it, but that's how they turn into O-2 is by gaining 1 electron each. That's what I'm trying to explain.
I didn't see the 1 electron part.
It's okay. When I first read it, I was like, huh, I know it's C or D, but what are they getting at here? It took me, a minute or so to figure that one out. So just wording was weird. All right, 39. Great question for thermo. Well, when I say great, it's probably not great for you guys because it's confusing. So, how do we know if it's favorable or not?
It says the favorability.
Yeah, but how do we know that?
Negative delta G.
Negative delta G means it's favorable. So we're using this equation.
Did you pick the one that said it's not?
I didn't know what I was doing.
Well, sometimes kids pick the one that's different and they hope that's right. Alright, so that's not a bad tactic sometimes. We have no idea. On the Regents, I do tell the kids if you literally have no idea, which shouldn't happen, but if they have no idea in a multiple choice, pick the one that's different. That's Regents, this is not Regents anymore. Alright,
Can't do that.
now, delta H, just be thankful you don't have 5 choices anymore. Up until 2013, they had 5 A, B, C, D, E.
I do better when there's 5, so.
That's like a punch in the throat. So, delta H, -610 minus 298 times -0.0073. Now, it's important to understand you have to have both kilojoules or both joules. I've said that so many times, I hope you remember that. Now, this is multiple choice. You cannot use a calculator. I understand that. You don't need a calculator. If you multiply these together, is this going to be smaller or bigger than that number? Forget the sign.
No.
See, that's what I did, but I said it was going to
Small.
be bigger because I multiplied not by .007.
Right, it's going to be smaller.
I did
so,
7
so this is smaller, this is bigger. So if you have a bigger negative minus a smaller negative plus plus, essentially you have a big negative and a small positive, delta G is going to be negative. So, but hold on. The reason it's C, not D, is exactly the same explanation. This being much larger than this is why delta G is negative. That's why it's basically thermodynamically favorable, only because the delta H is so big, such a big negative. I guess you could argue because this is small,
Technically.
but that's not how it works. I just don't. I don't have a great explanation for it. In other words, if this wasn't what it was here, then this wouldn't be a negative G. And I know you could say, well, if this wasn't what that
This is a jerk question.
That's like me saying, like,
It's
It's
a big
so-
jerk question.
So let me rephrase it. What has a larger role in why this is negative? It's this one, not this. That's another way to kind of
Technically,
look
they're
at it.
both right. Technically, they're both right. Not in context of the question, but they're both right.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
They
Yeah.
are both right. I
But
agree.
wouldn't it be C because the entropy is negative?
Well, and that's yeah. I just looked at it, and that was just it literally occurred to me at the same time. Good point. So because delta S is negative, what does that mean? Entropy decreases from reactants to products. That's not good. We want high entropy, low energy. So we want low energy, negative exo, and we want high. So that's a good point, Cole. And when I looked at the sheet, it just reminded me of that. That was good timing. So that's another way to pick between C and D. Good point. All right, 40. All right, so 40 is A.
This one was jazz. I put this B. Put B because there's a 240 there.
I'm hoping. I'm really hoping that everybody else is worse than me.
Yeah, there's gonna be one dumb school around somewhere.
I just had.
There's gotta be a dumb school somewhere.
There it is.
Kids like us thinking they can do the class,
All right.
but they can't.
How do you find delta H if they give you bond energy?
Broken minus 4.
Right. Broken minus bonds formed. Reactants minus products. That should make sense to you because you can't figure out how much energy is lost or gained until you figure out how much do you need to break up the reactants and then how much is lost once you form the new products. So the way to do this is 430 is HH, so you're breaking one of those. 240 is ClCl, you're breaking one of those. So it's 430 plus 240 minus 2 times 430.
Oh, him and
2 times 430. And if you do that, you don't need a calculator to do this. Negative 190. So it's exothermic. It's got to be A, not D, because you are losing energy. Your products are lower than your reactants. Great question.
You are stupid.
Wow, that took a while. That's okay.
Forgot to add
Wait,
this.
Isn't needed.
We only have like 2 minutes. What? Give me one thing. You want me to just do a practice problem with you? Like a multiple choice real quick?
My brain is not working.
Do 41.
Yeah, let's do 41.
Do 41.
Everyone's got 41. Let's do 41 and then that'll be
I'm
it.
confused the hell.
We got a lot of time
Did
tomorrow.
41.
What are we doing this pack? We did.
I did all
I
of that.
got C.
Okay, well,
I got C.
everybody else, take a minute, do 41.
You can't be that stupid.
No, I got bad. Dang it.
I thought we were just doing these.
No, we have those plus these.
You have,
Oh.
you have that
Okay.
plus that.
Okay,
plus-
the really dark yellow one isn't due until review class. The light yellow
So
ones
if
are
you
can do that.
due
you
by
guys have
class.
tomorrow. You can do it very soon.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys gotta remind, wait, we never finished, where,
Let's just do it all.
I've been on my computer all day.
Let's do it all.
What, where did we leave off? On the sheet today, we were trying to figure out
What sheet?
PKA or something? Or
Oh,
buffer?
we were on the number 2, question number 2 of it. Part 2 of it.
Yeah,
Calculate-
buffer. Yeah, buffer.
I was.
Oh, there it is.
It was for thermo?
Yeah,
Thermo?
I gotta write that down.
One,
Yeah,
You're welcome.
so, it was, no, it wasn't thermal.
one, two,
It was
Acid base.
it was acid.
2002
Yeah, that one.
acid base,
Buffer question.
it was 2,
I have
2D, it was D, number D. Number D, I just said. Number D, alright. I'm getting shot too, not just you guys. I know you got a lot more going on.
After this, can we just do nothing for a week straight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know, I had a good idea the other day. Want to go to the weight room?
Yeah.
I would
Sure.
love that.
Because I can get a little workout. You guys are just whatever.
Actually,
Actually,
I
it's
would
like,
actually
yes.
love that.
Well,
We have gym
Maybe we
every
can
Yeah,
just
we have
make
gym
it.
anyway.
Whoever wants to go down can go down, and whoever doesn't can
I
just
don't know,
stay or
homework
do
or
whatever.
For what?
first period.
I've wanted to
Can
go
I
to the
leave
weight
school?
room so bad, but
Oh,
I
I
haven't
did
done it.
All right. Did you guys all do this? This is why we're talking.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
The answer is
You guys say it.
C.
Yeah, Liz! Oh my god!
Okay. All right. One.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
But
I
no,
got
but
3
what's
out of
this?
10.
That's-
I got 3 out of 10, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Small victories.
All right. You're right. Small victories. So now you're 1 for 1 on the next test.
Exactly.
All right. Now hold on. Let me just explain it real quick. So the first, second, and third are all kind of lowish in energy. There's a huge jump, meaning this thing has 3 valence electrons, which means it forms a +3 ion, which is why it's X2O3.
There's no way.
Yeah, but that was my thought process too. I did it right.
I thought part of D's way too big, A's way too small.
I don't know about that.
I just saw their read over close and I.
Sorry.